All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Really interesting article out on Bleacher Report. Players in the NFL that still could be on the chopping block either this spring or this summer. They listed one for every single team in the league. And we'll go through that list and look at if any of those players would be good fits for the Niners as the Niners try to get that sixth Lombardi trophy. Now, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open every day from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Get the brisket. The brisket chili's amazing. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Kruger sent you. And we're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. Give Anthony Catania a call. He's at 831-521-5264. All right, let's talk a little bit about this article. I read it this morning on Bleacher Report, and I thought it was kind of interesting. It just goes through every team in the league. And after the draft, I mean, the way the draft and free agency works is, you have your needs and you address them maybe in free agency. And if you didn't address them in free agency, you address them in the draft. And some teams address their needs in both free agency and the draft. Sometimes after you go to mini camp, you realize, man, the draft played for us where we got, three or four players at a different position that we didn't think that we're going to have this much depth for. And then that's kind of how the whole roster thing shakes out in the NFL. And then guys are on the bubble and, we have too many linebackers. Well, you have too many wide receivers and trades are sometimes made. And sometimes teams cut players that are pretty good players. And so they went through the entire league and they listed, of the 32 teams, 32 players that are most likely to be cut and could be on the chopping block, either going into training camp, in the preseason, or potentially right at the cut down when teams, formulate their 53-man rosters right before Labor Day and week one of the NFL. So here are 10 players out of the 32 that I think could be good fits for the 49ers. Now, the first one is Levi Onwuzurike, who played at UW and was a high pick by the Detroit Lions, defensive tackle. He's had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, but this guy is really, really strong, really, really fast. He had 33 tackles as a rookie in 2021, but he's only appeared in 10 games since then because of a bunch of injuries. And then they added Mekhi Wingo in the 6th round at LSU, and a lot of people feel like, there's a very good chance Onwuzurike could be out there on the street at some point or available via trade. And if they do release him, they save $1.7 million from their books. So he's a big, fast, talented guy who's plays stronger than his size, in my opinion, and maybe even a little bit more athletic than you would think. I mean, this guy was really good at Washington. I thought he was on a good trajectory. And then he's had some injuries and he hasn't been able to stay on the field. So he's number 10. And the 49ers have, obviously moving on from Armstead, they added Jordan Elliott. They brought in Evan Anderson as an undrafted free agent. They signed Malik Collins. So they've already got Kevin Givens and Kalia Davis and T.Y. McGill. And it's not like they're naked at defensive tackle. But this guy is a better talent than a lot of the guys they have. And if they could get this guy at the cut down or in an August trade, this guy could do for your defensive line kind of, when the Niners and Lions hooked up on a trade that brought Laken Tomlinson to the Niners. He was a former first-round pick out of Duke. It didn't really work out for him in Detroit. They moved on, but the Niners got some useful years out of Tomlinson, who's made himself a lot of money in this league. So I kind of see the defensive line version of Laken Tomlinson. It hasn't quite happened, and it looks like Detroit may move on. And if they do, man, that would be a nice guy to get to add to your defensive line. All right, number 9 on the list was probably a better suggestion 2 years ago, to be completely honest, because he's coming off a bad year. But James Bradbury, I'd at least be interested in taking a look. I mean, you can never have enough corners. This guy was terrible last year. I mean, he really was. And a lot of people think maybe he's done. And he's one of the main reasons that the Eagles went out in the draft and said, we got to improve our pass D. And they added Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. But, this guy's played a lot of good football. The Eagles can designate him as a post June 1 cut, and they would cut off their payroll about 10.8 million in dead money this season. So I think there's a very good chance Bradbury's out there. Niners are pretty fortified on the corner, but you can never have enough corners, and he's at least worth looking at. I would probably pass on him, but this list of guys that are going to be cut. Anytime a good corner at any point gets cut, you always want to take a look. Okay, now he's number 9 on the list. Number 8 on the list is a real interesting name on my list. DeMarco Jackson, the linebacker from the Saints. And the Saints, the Saints have a lot of good linebackers. I mean, this is just one of those spots where they're loaded. I mean, they have Demario Davis, they have Pete Warner, they have Sewell, and then they signed Willie Gay away from the Chiefs, and they've got Kaliki Hudson and Monty Rice, the former Georgia linebackers, in their camp, and they just drafted Jalen Ford out of Texas. And so they've got DeMarco Jackson, and there's a lot of people who feel like DeMarco Jackson may be on the outside looking in. He's a pretty good linebacker. I really like DeMarco Jackson in the draft out of Appalachian State, and he's a really solid linebacker who can rush, who can cover, who can do a lot of things. To me, that's a numbers game. That's a really good football player getting caught up in a numbers game. So I'd definitely be interested in DeMarco Jackson. Number 7 on my list would be Darren Waller of the New York Giants. They say Waller, may opt to retire, which is kind of interesting. They drafted Theo Johnson in the 4th round. The Giants did. They save about $5 million if they release Darren Waller. Now, if Darren Waller doesn't want to play, then that's one thing. But I mean, Darren Waller is not that far removed from being a Pro Bowl tight end. And if you look at the 49ers, the one thing, I mean, they don't have is depth at tight end. I like Mason Pline a lot. They signed Eric Saubert, but they don't have they've got Cam Latu and Braden Willis if either of those guys come of age in year 2. But I mean, if you could get your hands on Darren Waller, Waller and Kittle together would give you an incredible 2 tight end look. Maybe the best 2 tight end look you've had since, I don't know. I mean, maybe since when they had Jordan Reed, who gave them kind of a good 2 tight end look. All right, so he's number 7 on the list. Number 6 on the list is a guy that a lot of people would be like, what? How's this guy in your list? But I really like this player, Kadarius Toney from the Chiefs. I know he's made some horrible, decisions where he's kind of lost his focus. But this guy is just the movement ability, the stop-start ability. I mean, the reason people always take looks at Kadarius Toney is because he's a freaky athlete, and he's an incredible return guy. And I just think that when you look at, I like Ronnie Bell, I like Chris Conley, I like some of the guys the Niners have in camp. But if you really want to win, you're going to probably have to take a chance on a couple of guys who are super talented that are a little crazy or a little bit off or a little bit, I'm not sure, he's made a lot of mental mistakes where he's been, both at Florida and with the Chiefs. But man, this guy's electric. I mean, seriously, and the stop and start. And could you imagine Kadarius Toney in kind of the Debo mold? I mean, very versatile receiver. Maybe you could get him to play his best football. Anybody who can get the potential out of Kadarius Toney is going to get a really, really special player that scores touchdowns and makes big plays and has stop and start quickness and open field running ability that is just truly, truly rare. So if the Chiefs are going to wind up cutting him this summer, I know the Niners are loaded at receiver and they got a ton of guys already, but this guy's better than Danny Gray. This guy's better than, I'm not saying that he's better than the, Cowing or Pearsall, who they just drafted. But man, if you're, these new return rules, I'd be looking for every electric returner I could get. And this guy is an electric stop and start athlete, whether it's be from scrimmage or on special teams. So Kadarius Toney, if you can get Kadarius Toney, I'd be very interested. All right, number 5 on the list is a name that everybody knows. It's Jimmy Ward of the Texans. And Jimmy Ward would be always welcome here. Seriously, Jimmy Ward can play linebacker, safety, corner. If the Texans stupidly got rid of Jimmy Ward, even with the injuries, even with the age, I'm absolutely signing that guy. I mean, this guy plays for the right reasons. He's super physical. He can play everywhere. He plays with his hair on fire. He'll give you everything he's got. Absolutely. If they could get Jimmy Ward back, I would take him back just because he can fill in the blanks. If you're good at safety, he can play corner. If you're good at corner, he can play safety. The safety depth is really not there. I mean, you got Jair Brown, who's obviously coming off a good year. You got the rookie Malik Mustafa, and then you've got an injured Talanoa Hufanga, who's injured a lot at USC and is coming off an ACL. Who knows when he'll be ready? Then you got George Odom, but he's truly a special teamer. And after that, you're talking about practice squad level players. So, yes, if I could get Jimmy Ward, I do kind of like, Mustafa and Jalen Mahoney, who they signed as a college free agent. But Jimmy Ward would definitely be on my list. I would definitely sign him if he was available this summer. Number 4 on the list is another ex-Niner, and he's another interesting guy, Trent Brown, who's now with the Bengals, and the Bengals drafted Amarius Mims, and there's some talk that they may cut Trent Brown. Well, Trent Brown's had weight problems. He's floated around a little bit, but he's a monster right tackle who, if his weight is at all in check, I think is a very, very, a very good player. So I would definitely be interested in Trent Brown if he's available this summer, just how rare it is to get tackles. Another guy who's really interesting to me, they're saying the Colts may cut Mo Alley Cox. So he's got $5.9 million salary for this year. None of it's guaranteed. And they've got some young tight ends there and that didn't really play. And Mo Alley Cox, could he's likely going to be their 4th string tight end, and at 5.9 million, that's probably too pricey for him. So he's probably going to get cut. But Mo Alley Cox, if the Niners don't add a tight end, he would be another good veteran tight end to add to the room, to add to what the Niners have right now. Another guy on that same list would be the number 2 guy on my list, and that's Harrison Bryant, who the Raiders signed, I think, away from the Browns earlier this offseason. But then they drafted Brock Bowers, and they already had Michael Mayer. So, there's no question that Harrison Bryant is better than Zach Gentry. But now that you've got Mayer and Bowers, they may not want Harrison Bryant as their 3rd tight end. And if so, that would be a guy that the 49ers should have interest in as well, Harrison Bryant. And then the number 1 guy on the list, as far as I'm concerned, is Dominique Robinson from the Bears, the defensive end. This guy's a really interesting guy. He started off as a quarterback, then played wide receiver, and went to Miami of Ohio. And he played 50% of the snaps as a rookie, and then his snap share dropped to 35% last year. And then the Bears have since added Montez Sweat, and then they just drafted Austin Booker out of Kansas in the draft. And there's a lot of people that think that Robinson may fight for the final spot on their edge rushing rotation. Well, in my mind, Dominique Robinson of the Bears is probably better than Drake Jackson and Robert Beal. I hate to say it. I like Robert Beal and I like Drake Jackson, and I think they're talented. But this is the kind of piece that the 49ers definitely should be interested in. And if the Bears are looking to move him, that might even be worth a 7th round pick. I mean, this guy's super athletic, really, really fast. And he's raw because he played quarterback and then wide receiver. So he's late to defensive end, but he's a ridiculous athlete. And I think a really solid football player. And I think he's ideally suited to play in the Niners wide 9, because in the wide 9, it's just about, bending that edge and really threatening the edge and having the ability to counter back inside. It's just about get up the field and get after the quarterback. And this guy can really do that. And he's kind of scheme versatile. I mean, he could be a 3-4, outside linebacker, but I think he's or a 4-3 defensive end, but I think he's most ideally suited to a 4-3 wide 9, get up the field, really get after the passer, bend the edge. Dominique Robinson of the Bears. If the Bears are going to move on because of a numbers game and move off of Dominique Robinson, that's the kind of young athlete on the on the come that the 49ers ought to invest in off the edge. Last year, they got into the year and they went the veteran route. They signed Randy Gregory and then they went for Chase Young, and it didn't necessarily work out. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl, so it wasn't like it was a bomb, but I don't know if they went to the Super Bowl because of those two guys. And I don't, neither are back. And, it looked like Gregory was a little too light, a little too underpowered to set the edge and be effective in the wide 9, where I think Robinson's got a little bit more functional strength. And I think Chase Young was just, the effort wasn't there. The motor wasn't there. The consistency wasn't there. I mean, he had some great snaps and he had some regrettable snaps. So, I think Dominique Robinson, I'm not saying that you don't need Drake or you don't need Robert Beal or, none of your other defensive ends. It's not like this guy's going to wreck shop and just dominate. But I think as far as if you want an athletic young defensive end who you can play in your rotation and might give you a little bit more pass rush than what you're getting out of Beal and Drake, Dominique Robinson absolutely would be a guy I would be interested in. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And we should also tell you this video is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Aura. And now a word from Aura. Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up. And best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial. And thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.